High in the Indian Himalayas, the mountains of Ladakh have shaped generations of resilient people. One of them is Sonam Wangchuk, an engineer, education reformer, climate activist, and one of India's most recognizable public figures. He recently became an unlikely champion of India's youth-led Cockroach movement. As thousands of young Indians took to the streets protesting exam paper leaks and corruption, Wangchuk joined their cause, calling himself an honorary cockroach and launching a 26-day hunger strike in solidarity with their demands for education reforms.
Who is compromised?
That ended with a hard bargain, the education minister's resignation. But has anything really changed for India's young people? And where to now for the fight over their future? Today, we're speaking with Sonam Wangchuk in Ladakh. Mr. Wangchuk, thank you so much for speaking to DW. You were on a hunger strike for almost a month. Was it worth it?
Worth it? Definitely yes, because a lot has come out of that. There's more accountability for the government. There's realization that people weren't happy. It didn't seem like that, but they got to see that everything was not hunky-dory, particularly around the subject of education, which has been my whole life.
And some would also see the education minister's resignation as a rare concession from a government that is not known for, giving in on situations like this. Do you see it that way, that it is a bigger victory than you might have expected?
Totally. I think everybody is surprised. It was not that they wanted to, they suddenly became sensitive. They were forced to by the sort of uprising among young people, which they were surprised because, youth of this country are the kingmakers of the nation. And when you upset them at this level, you have to think about your own survival, existence in the government. So they were forced to rethink their policy and finally accept the resignation. I'm only surprised that they took so long to understand. They did so much damage. They could have avoided so much by taking accountability and accepting this and moving forward. They would have won so much goodwill among young people. Alas, they lost that and finally accepted when it was almost too late.
So it sounds like they underestimated the power of the kingmakers, like you say, the youth of the country.
Yes, totally. They underestimated or they took for granted. They knew that India is 2/3 young people, but they took for granted that all is well, whereas all is not well.
You went, 4 weeks without any food, just surviving on water in the sweltering heat of Delhi. Were there moments, as the days passed, where you felt like you wanted to give up?
Oh, no. Not really. Everybody was saying you should pack up, you should go, nothing will change, you will die. But what I learned in the process was that it's not me affecting the thoughts of the rulers, but rather my pain for the people moved the people of the country, which then moved the rulers.
But how far were you ready to go?
I was ready to go quite far, but I know that beyond a point, it starts eating up more than your fats, your muscles. That was already happening. My muscles were going very fast. And then comes a time when your organs are eaten up by the body because there is no food. And that can lead to permanent damage to brain or heart. So therefore, 42 days was one consideration. Yes, but that was as good as, till death or till half death, which is worse than death.
On a lighter note though, did you have thought bubbles in your head about your favorite food or your favorite cuisine?
End of the second week, I was thinking of the ripening of apricots in my village. Yeah, every time I would call my brothers or sisters here, I would say, "Are the apricots ripening? Please stop them from ripening. If I come back, I want to." And that's what I did. The first thing I came back to my village and they were still in their last stage.
Before you began your fasting, the government was not engaging with the protesters at all. I mean, we've talked about how they underestimated the Gen Z and the youth. What convinced you that putting your own body and life on the line is going to change that?
Well, I wasn't sure it's going to change. You're sure about nothing. That's what is the beauty of life. Yeah, you have to take a leap. This was my sixth fast or hunger strike. 5 I had done before, and one of 21 days, which is same as Mahatma Gandhi's longest fast. And I actually wanted to see something that is tested and tried 100 years ago by Mahatma Gandhi and by us at a very small scale here. Could it work still after 100 years in the national capital of a nation? If you go out in a riot with stones and fire, arson, they have such powerful answers in their guns and weapons. But if you inflict pain on yourself, do no harm to anybody, that then touches and moves the hearts and souls of the people, the conscience of the people, and that then makes them pay attention.
Mr. Wangchuk, activism has come at a cost for you. You spent 6 months in jail for instigating riots when you were on the protest for statehood for Ladakh. And within months of your release, you were back at it. You were on the streets leading another movement, the Cockroach movement. What makes that cost worth it for you?
For example, if 20 young people have given their lives, then me, one person, suffering a little or a lot, how can it be more important than 20 who have martyred themselves and thousands who have suffered, or millions who have suffered? Therefore, I shouldn't obsess or be attached to this one life.
I want to talk to you about your relationship with the Modi government. I mean, you've been an admirer of him and his policies in the past, but in recent years you have protested his government. How would you describe that relationship today?
In the first few years, if you think of the first term, there were so many good things they were launching, from cleanliness drives to International Solar Alliance to smart cities to educational skilling of the nation. Anybody would be moved and touched by those things, especially an educator and an environmentalist. Yeah. So therefore I admired other governments for what good they were doing, but I am of the kind that admires when there are good things and criticizes, raises voice, doesn't hesitate when things are not right. Prime Minister should value criticism, because that's what is the compass for their growth. If everybody just says blindly, wonderful, wonderful, even when it is not wonderful, then they are heading for a fall or an explosion on the streets.
In his national address on Independence Day on August 15, Prime Minister Modi warned against mental Naxals, which basically means insurgents who are, he said, misleading the youth of India. Do you think he's referring to people like you in that national address?
Well, I have no idea what he's referring to, but generally Naxals are considered people who are up with arms, I would say, against injustices they perhaps face. But I still think the answer to resolve injustices is through peace and peaceful communication of your sufferings by afflicting sufferings on yourself rather than going with arms.
Do you think it's like a dog whistle to, his critics?
Well, I think it would damage a government more if they just silence critics and dissent and voices. These are the valves of the pressure cooker that give you a sense of where the nation is, so that you mend your ways. To silence them or to label them this and that will only build the pressure more, which will be more difficult to handle.
There are, a lot of questions around Prime Minister Modi's image, who's seen as a strongman. Do you think he's been cut down to size?
In a dictatorship, a powerful leader who doesn't give in to people is maybe respected, a powerful. But in a democracy, that's exactly the opposite of what should be respected. In a democracy, a leader who is sensitive to people, who is open to dialogue, who is approachable, is the highest form. Now we have to decide whether India is an autocratic dictatorship, in which case the image of a prime minister who is tough and not bending or bowing should be respected. But if we still consider India a democracy, then the leaders should introspect and see what is considered the highest form in a democracy. And the same I would expect from people of India and the world, to rank their leaders in that context, the context of democracy or autocracy.
But is there anything that you think the Modi government has done right when it comes to the youth or their education?
Well, the latest thing they have done of taking accountability of what went wrong in the NEET examinations and making the minister resign is the best example of how it should be. It shouldn't have taken protest of this size or 20 young people giving their lives. They should have resigned on the first day. So that's a very good thing. Okay, that happened. Discussing it in the parliament is a good thing, although it's not yet complete. So any such measures to bring change after people voice their disagreement or unhappiness is a very good thing, and I hope they'll take such steps in the future also.
Aside from the shift in the Modi government's approach to the protests now, which you appreciate them for, was the real victory here more than the minister's resignation? Because of 2 months of covering this protest on the street at Jantar Mantar, I got a sense that the fear of reprisal is gone. People are not scared that the government is going to come after, especially the youth. Do you think that's also a victory of this protest?
I hope that there is learning on both sides. The government learns that this repression is not the way, and they mend their ways. This time will tell us whether they emerge out of this event as a sensitive government that listens to the people, or they just let it cool down and then come back to their repressive mechanisms that were used. On the other hand, for people, especially young people, I hope the learning comes that whatever the atmosphere, we must not fear, we must voice and come out. Keeping silent is like all of us together falling in a ditch, but raising voice means you may fall into the ditch, but the nation will not, the rest of the people will not, and therefore you sacrifice. So that sense of sacrifice and sense of fearlessness is what I expect from Gen Z and other generations as well.
How worried do you think Modi government should be for its future in power?
Any government should take feedback seriously. And when something happens that never used to happen, all the more reason for them to take it as a big alarm bell or a pressure valve whistling. And yes, this is a very good signal to take and mend their ways if they are very clever. If not, then we may wait for another explosion.
You've called for a peaceful revolution. You've pointed out that close to half of the Indian MPs have criminal cases against them. 1/3, many of them face serious allegations like murder, rape, kidnapping. This is indeed serious, and this is backed by facts. But critics might say that you're trying to mobilize people against this political establishment. How do you respond to that?
Tell me, shouldn't you mobilize people when their leaders, half of them have criminal allegations and a third have such serious things? Isn't it the best thing to mobilize? Isn't it a sin to keep silent in such a situation when your top leaders who are supposed to show you the path have themselves lost the path? And if someone says, look, this is the situation, we must improve, that I'm proud of and I'll keep doing.
What holds people like you accountable?
I think people hold people like me accountable. If I say irrational things, they'll soon stop listening to me. If there's value in what I say and they see and study and back it up and also want to change, then you'll see that. So it's a self-correcting mechanism. People who speak irrelevant things will lose their relevance.
Coming back to Cockroach Janata Party, they've said that they want to remain a pressure group to ask for accountability from the government on youth-related issues. What's your view on how they should take this movement forward?
Well, we used to have discussions when I was on fast at Jantar Mantar about how to move forward. There were, things discussed about whether to go political, whether to stay apolitical, and I thought, and most of them agreed, and now have decided that because so many young people have placed their trust in this platform, we should keep it apolitical so that we can be equidistant to all parties and promote the interests of the youth or the students in education. And therefore, a pressure group could do that best.
And where do you see yourself with the movement going forward? I mean, for now, you've taken a step back. You're looking after your health. But where do you see yourself in the future?
Well, I have been supporting various movements. Yeah? So I say my role is of a crane that pushes a vehicle till its own engine starts. Okay. Once its engine starts, I'm happy to see it going, and if needed, I'm there to support. And I'll continue doing that and be available to those who I happen to support. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.